primary frontrunner, Vice President Joe Biden, doubled down on his support for the taxpayer funding of abortion on demand during this week's Democratic presidential debate hosted by CNN.
Talk about now running for president and you change your position on the Hyde Amendment, Vice President, where you made a decision for years to withhold resources to poor women to have access to reproductive health care, and including women who were the victims of rape and incest. Do you now say that you have evolved and you regret that?
The fact is that the senator knows that's not my position. Everybody on this stage has been in the Congress, and the Senate or House has voted for the Hyde Amendment at some point. The Hyde Amendment in the past was available because there was other access for those kinds of services provided privately. But once I wrote the legislation making sure that every single woman would in fact have an opportunity to have health care paid for by the federal government, everyone, that could no longer stand. I support a woman's right to choose. I support it's a constitutional right. I've supported it. I will continue to support it. And I will in fact move as president to see to that the Congress legislates that is the law as well.
The Hyde Amendment prevents the taxpayer funding of abortion. It was implemented in 1976 and had long enjoyed bipartisan support. Biden backed the amendment throughout his political career until he flipped his view this June. For a pro-life analysis of this week's Democratic debates, we are joined in studio by Mallory Quigley, the Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List, and Tom McClusky, the President of March for Life Action, the political arm of the March for Life. Thank you both for being here for this important analysis.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So the topic of abortion finally came up at the end of debate night 2 when Senator Harris pressed Vice President Joe Biden on his flip-flop on the Hyde Amendment. Let's take a listen to her follow-up question.
Well, why did it take you so long to change your position on the Hyde Amendment? Why did it take so long until you were running for president to change your position on the Hyde Amendment?
Because there was not full federal funding for all reproductive services prior to this point.
Mallory, can you clarify first off, what is the Hyde Amendment?
Yes, well, as you mentioned, it's legislation to stop taxpayer funding of abortions. In Medicaid, it does, contrary to what the Vice President said, include exceptions for rape and incest, and as you said, it's long-standing bipartisan policy that has had the support of many pro-life Democrats for decades. It's saved more than 2 million lives in the last 40 years, and Vice President Biden was the last candidate to sort of hold out on support for this. He has supported it over the years, and to see him flip-flop, I think, speaks to the grip hold that the abortion lobby has on this Democratic primary field.
Tom, what does Biden's flip on the Hyde Amendment reveal to you?
Well, it's emblematic of what we're seeing within the full Democratic Party. Joe Biden actually used to attend March for Life back in the early 1980s. And it was when he ran in 1988, he still self-identified as pro-life, but hid behind everybody's decision is their own personal decision. Except now, if you look at the Democratic platform and the evolution of that, and even the safe and rare that we used to hear back in the day from the Clinton administration, even that's been thrown out the window. So it's really a shame that a party that says it stands up for social justice does not extend that to the womb.
And I want to mention Vice President Biden also identifies as Catholic. It was over 4 hours worth of debates this week, and the word abortion was not mentioned once, but there were euphemisms. Women's right to choose, reproductive health care. Why is that?
Well, I think you're seeing this among a lot of those on the other side, those among who I would call pro-abortion. You look at what happened to the former Planned Parenthood president, Leana Wen, who was forced out because she wanted to identify abortion as health care. Just this past week, you saw a memo from NARAL telling their canvassers, don't mention, stay away from the word abortion, don't say abortion is health care. Mm-hmm. And now you have the presidential candidates, all of whom support abortion on demand, and even against legislation such as the Born Alive Act, all applauding or all afraid to say the word abortion.
There's been so much talk last night in the debate about the need to beat President Trump, and I think maybe the whole field is starting to look outward and say, look, eventually we're going to have to stop catering to this extreme minority on the Democratic side that supports what the platform stands for, abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, paid for by taxpayers. And maybe they're starting to realize that they are going to have to pivot at some point to appeal to people in the middle. And their position on abortion is dramatically unpopular with independents, even with Democrats. A third of all Democrats identify as pro-life, and even people who self-describe as pro-choice oppose the radical nature of these positions. I mean, all the senators, right, that are in this field voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. You know, that should be common sense legislation to protect babies once they've been born, give them the same care as infants born premature at the same stage. So
it's really telling.
And they're really doing their party, and the moderators are doing the Democratic Party a disservice by not bringing this up. Because if you remember in 2016, with the debates between candidate Trump and Secretary Hillary Clinton, where President Trump did what we've begged candidates to do for years, and I think a lot because of the coaching from Marjorie, he described a partial birth abortion right on stage. And it was extremely powerful, and Hillary Clinton really did not know how to respond to it. And it exposed, I think, the radicalism of her views. And now they're setting up whoever the candidate might be to be exposed again.
And you know, I know we're talking about Democratic debate analysis, but do any of these candidates disagree with each other on the abortion issue? Is there any debate?
that's the thing, Catherine, is that there really isn't any daylight between these candidates now, especially now that Vice President Biden has completely, you know, upended the apple cart on his position on the Hyde Amendment. So Susan B. Anthony List has actually released a website today, lifeontheballot.com. So you can go there and you can see the voting records and the positions that all of the Democratic candidates have taken, as well as an analysis of President Trump's pro-life wins while he's been in office. And yeah, that's the thing. There's just no difference between any of them. They've actually been, you know, jockeying prior to last night, you know, jockeying to outdo each other on abortion. They've come out with these different healthcare plans that all support abortion on demand. You know, Senator Harris actually has a very, you know, people can debate the constitutionality of it to cancel all of the state pro-life laws. It's disturbing.
And to your point, we didn't hear a lot about abortion in this week's debate, but we did hear a lot about healthcare. Let's take a listen.
Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. I believe that. I will fight for that.
We must agree that access to health care must be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it.
Let's be clear about this. We are the Democrats. We are not about trying to take away health care from anyone.
What should our viewers know about these candidates' healthcare plans, especially when it comes to the abortion issue?
Well, every single one of them, a large majority, and even some who don't have a record, felt compelled to come out and say they were for something like Medicare for All. And Medicare for All has been celebrated by pro-abortion groups like Planned Parenthood and NARAL because it goes after the Hyde Amendment and goes after all the other pro-life provisions that have been in for decades. And even the more, the media uses the word moderate, but it is like comparing apples to apples when we're talking about these candidates in abortion. Even the more moderates like Joe Biden and all and Pete Buttigieg feel that in their health care plan, abortions for all needs to be part of it.
That's incredible. Thank you both for being here for this important pro-life analysis of the Democratic debates. Tom McClusky and Mallory Quigley, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Catherine.